Hello and welcome to your regularly scheduled Abyss and Imaginarium Theater review. I have grown very used to using that intro for both these videos and the version reviews. I mean, it fits, eh? Just saying if there's anything weird with the audio or the video or anything, I went through a whole lot of bullshit with my Windows installed, so if any of my settings got borked or anything, that's why anything is weird again, either audio or video. Anyway, today we are taking a look at the 6.6.5 Abyss and Imaginarium Theater. I was thinking of calling it 6.7 because the reset wasn't that far away from the new version, but the content in the game modes had no correlation to 6.7's content, so I think 6.6.5 is more fitting, or we can just say June 2026 Abyss and Imaginarium Theater. So, let's immediately begin with the Abyss segment. This Abyss was interesting because both of the banner units can have similar team comps, so it did feel like you needed two teams of the same requirements, which isn't really that common to have, but let's get into the details and you will see what I mean. It felt like you needed two of those of teams of the same type, but actually you might have not needed those. Floor 11 begins with a monolith defense, a pretty easy one, because both halves just contain Abyss Mages and Slimes, with the first half being Electro ones and the second half being Cryo ones. Very easy, we don't need to talk about any detailed counters to these enemies, you know the drill. 11-2 continues with the easy chambers. The first half is just Ruined Drakes, the ground version, and the second half is just Cryo Lava Churls. You can see the divide in halves. The second halves are very clearly meant for Pyro DPSs, with the first ones being more open, but Pyro is still a top option. But then 11-3 finishes with a complete turnaround that we will also see in floor 12, because the first half is the new Domain Keeper enemies. These are the ones that you will need to hit with a Feck element, Feck being Pyro, Hydro, Electro, Cryo. Yes, Feck. When they enter a charging phase, these enemies, and I am pretty sure you are supposed to hit them with a different one every time they do this mechanic, but in the overworld and here in floor 11, they do not have even close to the HP to ever enter the charging phase a second time, so just hit them with anything really, and it won't really matter. They do gain, I think, resistances to the element they record, let's call it, but you again will not notice it in floor 11, that's for sure. I think the intended idea is for Vape, but mostly Melt teams to go against these enemies, and that's why I bring this weird switch in enemies, because Melt doesn't really do much for the first halves of this floor 11, while the second halves are a bit more obvious. Anyway, the second half for 11-3 is just a construction mech from Fontaine, and that's it. Nothing noteworthy for it. So all in all, floor 11 is very easy. You need a bit of Pyro for the Cryo enemies in the monolith defense, but everything else has many counters. So use whatever you want. No bosses or anything in 11-3 also solidifies the no need for any attention in your teams. Just the Pyro things for the Cryo Lava Churl and the Cryo enemies in the second halves. Which brings us to floor 12. And first are the buffs. And they are good, surprisingly. The first halves have a very big elemental skill damage buff, which can be used by plenty of characters, while the second halves have a big general damage buff to Pyro, which, thank fuck, it's not specific. If it was something like specifically burst Pyro damage or, attack Pyro damage, it would be a completely different, story, but it's just a general damage buff. Thank fuck. Every character also gets no off-field bullshit, which they pulled previously, or on-field only. So again, just general one. Holy shit, it was really good to have a general buff. Now, enemies-wise, oh boy. At first glance, you will see the enemies and want to scream because there are some really weird combos of enemies here. And because the banners were Mavuika and Lochen when this Abyss reset, who both play in Melt teams, it brings in, as I said in the beginning, the feeling of needing to melt teams. But while yes, that is the intention that they wanted to push, there are many smart ways to bypass this requirement, especially if you do not do every chamber with the same teams. So, finally starting, 12-1's first half is 3 waves of 1 enemy each, containing in order a Hilichurl Rogue, an Electro Wayop, and then a Hydro Eidolon or Phantasm, whatever you want to call it. It's a weird combo, but with just a bit of strategy you can easily deal with them. Main note being to maybe not use some bursts or farm some energy on the rogue in order to use them for breaking the Wayob's shield if you need the application or the damage or anything. And as for the Eidolon, it has, might I say, a fuck ton of HP, even though it's not a local legend variant. So use the Hydro to your advantage, but even with Pyro non-stop doing vape on it, it felt like this thing had like 1,000,000 plus HP, while the Hilichur Rogue and the Electro Aeob just insta-died. Anyway, second half is, man, do they know that Mavuika really doesn't need anything specific to shield her? You know, but then they remembered, oh hey, we have 2 enemies from Natlan that have incredibly shitty mechanics, and Mavuika is the easy cheat. Perfect! Bring them in. So we have an enemy plus boss chamber, where the enemy is the secret source automaton that takes like half damage if you don't use Night Soul to charge it, and then the boss is its big brother, the shitty pillar automaton boss, that very much takes no damage if you don't either reduce its resistance by a ton or use Night Soul. And of course, don't forget the need to climb the pillars. It's just an annoying chamber altogether. The Wayob and its time-wasting BS on top of course, the 1 enemy 3 waves thing, and then an enemy and boss that take way less damage if you don't follow their shit mechanics, but that doesn't make them difficult, it just makes them super annoying and time-wasting. Anyway, there are many cheats to climbing the pillars. Kazuha, Venti, Varka for Anemo characters, many Natlan characters, any character that jumps high, Xiao, Gaming, you know, plunging stuff. There are also some exploits that can allow you to actually climb the pillars with like, what was it, like medium female model characters, but depending on those for your run, it's not really the best idea to just gamble if the game is actually going to allow you to climb the pillars. If you can pull it off, or have the time to try again and again, then go for it, or just use the other 20 ways that exist. Really, the annoying part of the boss is just the insane amount of res it has until it goes into pillar mode, and the only way to make it go faster is Night Soul, which is just annoying. Now, thankfully, this is 12-1, so you can just do the other chambers and then bring other teams for this one, because as you might think that you have teams for this chamber, they might not be very suitable for the next ones. Speaking of 12-2 continues the time wasters because the first half starts with an Electro-Lector, which honestly, I was surprised to see. These motherfuckers, like Electro-Lectors and Heralds, are just gone, right? We haven't seen them at all lately because they found other time-wasting bullshit. And then the Lector is followed by the Primo Geovishap, which it's back-to-back for this guy because both Mavuika and Lohen's Premium Mel teams have a Shielder. And, you know, the previous banners also had a shielder, so Primo Geovisa back-to-back. You don't really need a shielder since you can iframe its attack with a burst, but it can help with clear times. And then the second half begins with a Mirror Maiden, thick Mirror Maiden, but not so much HP, honestly, followed by Swanee. Yes, Swanee, which basically forces you into bringing some form of cryo in order to interact with its mechanics. And to go back to my point earlier, I mentioned Varka as a good character against the automaton boss, because with Durin and Anemo, you can easily shred its resistance for Varka to non-stop deal damage, and then Varka can use his hold skill to jump on the pillars or use Venti. But unless you are somehow running, I guess, Cryo Varka, you can't exactly run him against Swanee. Although that didn't stop me, by the way, and it didn't stop me from bringing Varka and doing some weird shit. And yeah, he didn't do that bad without a double same element team, which he needs. But I think my point, got across on, the strategy of I don't need cryo for the first boss, but then I need cryo for Swanee. So yeah, he needs just a bit of cryo to freeze it. So take that into account when choosing your teams. And then for the end, 12-3 does the exact same thing that Floor 11 did, where the first half has the new Watcher boss, that most people know his best counter is Melt. It is his first appearance in the Abyss, so we get to cover this asshole, because, if you played the version, you first encountered this motherfucker in Stygian, where compared to Stygian, he is an absolute joke here. But for his mechanics, when the fight starts, he will go Kyokushi, Misadameyo. I literally wrote, insert the Japanese quote here in the script. But yeah, he goes, Kiryokushi, Misadame-yo. And then he will enter his recording mode, where hitting him with a fake element will make him record it. Then the fight flows without anything significant until he does the recording again, where you need to hit him with a different fake element than the first one. It is pretty easy to record the two different elements, because in order to make him record the same element twice, it needs many, many more hits than the first recording of an element. So I think I explained that decently, right? So the first time you record an element, it takes like 3 hits, and then if you want to record the same element, it takes like 8, 10 plus. So again, it's very easy to record one and another element. But yeah, after he records the second element, he will go to the center of the arena and spawn 2 stars that have the 2 recorded elements. And your job is to break them. And after you break each one, it will hit him, dealing a lot of damage, but also it will apply the element of the star. And they can, yes, do reactions. And that's why Melt is the best strategy, since the stars trigger Melt and absolutely destroy his HP. Especially in Stygian, it's an needed thing in order to actually kill the fucker. But in his Abyss version, his HP is pitiful. Also, by the way, if you make him record the same element twice, those stars basically become indestructible. Same if you make him not record an element, so make sure to get 2 different fake elements there. And this is where the pitiful comment was going, because you can very easily not bring Melt and just destroy him. Make sure to have a main DPS and a good sub DPS so that they each can destroy the stars of the other element, or simply have your main DPS not be of either of the elements that you will record, or just destroy him before he gets to record the second element. I brought Al-Haytham here, since Dendro does very well against the enemies in the first 2 chambers, and then I had Mona and Fischl for my fake elements, and also just really good buffs for Al-Haytham, for this guy. And he got destroyed, since Al-Haytham had no problem destroying the stars. And HP-wise, Al-Haytham destroyed him. Thank fuck, Fischl is just busted with any sort of Hydro. And then Mona does perfectly fine. I love you, Fischl. But then I also brought Flints, and the poor bastard never got to spawn the stars. He died before managing to do that. So my points from the beginning are completely validated here. The community very much agreed that the strategy against the Watcher is Melt because of his Stygian version. But the Abyss version has such low HP that you don't need the damage from the Melt stars to delete him in like even less than a minute. So where miHoYo wanted you to bring 2 Melt teams, one for this guy and one for Swanee and the second half of 12-3. Yes, I'm getting to it soon. You actually definitely don't need 2. Well, you maybe don't even need 1 either, but the second half of 12-3 is the Spirit Speaker boss from Natlan. It's the bitch that splits herself into a bunch of cryo clones at the start of the fight, and you need to kill all of them to reveal and stun her. So where you just needed cryo for Swanee, you now need a cryo counter for the clones. And you know the best is Pyro. So unless you deployed some sort of Pyro and cryo support and your main DPS somehow is neither of these 2 elements, then you most likely will end up with some sort of cryo or Pyro main DPS in a somewhat Melt team. And of course, a certain Mavuika support also has another interaction with this boss and is also fit for Swanee and the Pillar Fucker. You are going to need to find the right combo for her. Although my note on this boss isn't the elemental counter, but the fact I swear they fucking upped her damage significantly. Yeah, did I bring Bennett for a classic Bennett Kazuha combo to destroy her clones? Yes, I did. But also, I also sometimes didn't bring Bennett in some runs, and she still fucking 2-shot my characters. With Bennett, it was an easy 1-shot. So prepare your fucking ass, because for some reason, she hurts like a fucking truck. I don't know, man. She literally, it seems like she, compared to even other bosses, she just 2-shots your characters. Anyway, that is for the Abyss part of the video. It is a very weird Abyss when you first see the enemy lineup. I think maybe I kept it in the background footage, but you literally see me just hang on the enemy screen, just thinking, what the fuck am I gonna bring, man? Especially if you did the Watcher in Stygian, so your mind immediately goes to Melt for his counter, and then you see Swanee and the Spirit Speaker, so you go, man, I need Melt on both sides. But after some testing, That is not the case, and the Abyss actually ends up pretty easy since the HP of the enemies, definitely thanks to the actually decent-ish buffs, it seems quite low. So all in all, this Abyss was actually pretty easy, as long as you, again, don't home in on tunnel vision, to be more precise, on melt for both sides, so scramble some sort of fucking melt team, you realize that, okay, maybe I can just break a team from being its top version and change some things around and deal with both halves. I mean, especially the first half is super easy. I mean, yeah, I did mention Flints, who isn't the best when it comes to the Electro Wayob, but summon Nemo or something else to break the Wayob shield and you pass it. Or just, as I said, do the other chambers first and then come back to 12-1. So yeah, Abyss somehow decently easy. So, time for the Imaginarium Theater part of the review, and I have decided to, at the very least, include some screenshots of the stuff I talk about in Imaginarium Theater, since I usually do not record any footage of it, because it's not that fun usually, and guess what? This Imaginarium Theater took me 6 hours to complete. Yes, you heard that very clearly, because that's Imaginarium Theater, baby! If the element combo has some bullshit and then your RNG on character selections or the blessings is ass, then you will end up restarting the act over and over, especially if you're playing Lunar mode. The element combo for this month was Pyro, Cryo, and Geo. If you couldn't guess that they would include Melt, then yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just Melt, and then Geo has no business here. Anemo would have been way better, of course, and Dendro could have been nice, especially if they brought Rhymegrass back. So you are basically playing Melt or praying to get a bunch of the blessings to high levels to maybe deal some damage. Although I noticed this very much, they included a bunch of Hydra Aura enemies in order to trigger Lunar Crystallize. You will tell me, no man, Hydra Aura enemies, it's for Freeze and Vape. No. The extra enemies are the ones that have the Hydra Auras, while the main enemies, such as in Act 9, the Bounty Enemy Act, they are Geo enemies, with a bunch of Hydro Slimes around them. So you get the point? It's to trigger Lunar Crystallize on the Hydro Slimes in order to kill the fucking Geo enemy. Fuck you. Well, for the starting characters, I hope you have some of them, because you're not getting past those starting acts with only the trial ones. We have Klee on a good build, believe it or not, thanks to her hex buffs as well, she's actually playable, and with Rising Winds for artifacts, she actually deals damage. Then is Zhanling on an absolutely neutered build of Noblesse and Crimson Witch. Like, it has been, 4-5 years since Emblem came out, and very easily took the #1 spot for her best and easy build, but they decided, nope, not gonna use that. Then is Ayaka on Blizzard, with the so many Hydro characters to trigger it, and the unfreezable bosses. She's also on Ame no Makageuchi, which is a fine weapon, but the damage difference to even like some new 4-star weapons or just a crit 4-star weapon is just pretty big, so she's very underpowered here. Also, no Viridescent or Kazaha, which significantly boosts her damage. Then is definitely the biggest outlier of bullshit builds, Chongyun, with a royal weapon and Blizzard as well. Mihoyo, just make him heal the enemies while we're at it, instead of giving the poor boy this build. Atrocious. Please, level up Chongyun to the needed level for Imaginarium Theater and give him an actually good build. He's not bad at all. He had some smart uses. This build is an insult to him. And then last is Albedo and Noel on their classic Husk build, so they will do perfectly fine. Man, what will really take to have a starting cast where the trial characters will all have an acceptable build? I don't mean a perfect build, but just acceptable. There's always at least one that is just super bad. Now, for the bosses, we have the Perpetual Mechanical Array first, which is nice, actually, since it doesn't have any element needs, and being at the early acts means that it's like, 10 seconds plus waste time when it switches the, it spawns the other fuckers. The 10 seconds waste time is not that noticeable. Then is Maku Kenki with their fucking kinky with this boss lately. Again, though, not being at the later acts does save him a bit, but not fully. And then is the Seahorse from Fontaine with its intentional programming to fly up when its pearl reaches low HP just to give you the middle finger. Unless you have a very strong team, you will need to break that pearl before it flies up, because you will simply not have the time to waste breaking the things on the ground and wait for it to slowly float down as it does. Superbly annoying boss here, with Imaginarium Theater having the lower time requirements than the Abyss, and just also a lot of HP on the bosses, and then again the bullshit, oh, is the pearl HP low, better fly the fuck up. Yeah, it's just a super annoying boss. While yeah, we have Cryo and Pyro for the pearl, that's not the problem. And last is the Legatus Golem boss. Bring some good Geo, or also maybe use the official in the special invitations for Overload, which is what I did. I mean, official is, should be widely available on your accounts, and official is just busted. I fucking love her, man. Also voiced by fucking Maya Uchida, a goat. So I absolutely love official. But what frustrated me about this boss and the other Geo Aura enemies is that you cannot trigger the blessings for Crystallize on them unless you bring your own Geo character, which is incredibly bullshit. You know why? Because instead of the blessings triggering when Crystallize triggers, it's when you pick up the fucking crystal that they actually trigger. And Crystallize just doesn't trigger on the Legatus Golem if you hit it with an element. It's like, why? So when I could have ran a Sevrus team with Fischl and destroy this boss, because I at least get the crystallize, because I at least should get the crystallized buffs, I can't use Sevrus because I need a Geo character. And no, mine is not C6, which can slightly, let's say, alleviate her restriction. Her C6 doesn't actually need you to have only Electro and Pyro characters. So, yeah, sorry that Sevrus just never is in any banner that I actually pull on. And now we get to the best bit, which is the Lunar challenges. And prepare is what I will say, because instead of the usual bullshit in the first challenge and then the boss on the second one, they decided to give us a gigantic middle finger and put 2 of the bullshit challenges here. So you know how unfathomably angry I got doing these challenges. Well, the first one is non-stop spawning consecrated beasts, but at the very least, they spawn on the same spot and their HP isn't that high. I actually did this challenge extremely easily with Albedo as the main DPS. Albedo, Goro, and Durin, and just anybody else, it didn't matter, and Albedo just hitting 100k per skill, just one-shotted each of the beasts, or left them with such low HP that even 5 to 10,000 hit from Durin in his white mode instead of the dark mode just finished the beast. So any DPS that can deal 100k with like 2 attacks, basically, will destroy this challenge, since it will not allow the consecrated beasts to run around. And thankfully, there isn't any BS HP loss that is non-stop on you, but we still have the retarded elemental explosions just to piss you off. But I did notice that even with Crystallize, it was enough to block most of the damage, so I actually didn't need any healing, and Goro doesn't heal that much, by the way, to counteract the elemental explosions. Such bullshit mechanics, man. But this challenge, ladies and gentlemen, pales in comparison to the second one, which is another bullshit time challenge where the time fucking reduces when you kill an enemy, but it is way worse. First of all, the enemies are all ruin enemies, which you will say, okay, they are easy, they're ruin enemies, but included in there are both versions of the ruin drakes, which means one is flying above the ground with its bullshit hitbox on the tail, and many times I spawned any Geo construct, it got on top of it, and then it was unreachable, so that's a restart. And then the grounded version seemed to have like 2 to 3 times the HP of even the ruin graders. But that is the bottom of the problems, because not only do these fuckers spawn one at a time at completely different sides of the arena, so you run around like a dumbass to reach them, but also, do you want to know how much time you actually have to kill them? Well, you need to kill 10 of them. And each one takes 30 seconds off the timer. So in total, they take off a total of 300 seconds or 5 minutes. And you want to know at how many minutes the timer starts? 6. So you actually have one singular fucking minute to basically kill 10 fuckers spawning in different sides of the arena. And this is where I literally spent 2, 3, 4 hours. I can't even tell ya, because even one-shotting these enemies with my Riesli, doing 200,000 per charged attack, if one of the attacks missed the flying drake, or I missed one singular melt, or a crit, or any bullshit, on any of them meant a restart. This challenge is utter dog shit, and whoever designed it, get him in the grinder. Turn him into fucking mush. I am dead serious, you're a detriment to game design. One singular minute to run around the arena twice, 2.5 times. Think of that if you didn't play this challenge. Utter fucking dog shit. So this Imaginarium Theater completely depended if you have any melt supports or general geo supports, which aren't that many, but even having one was enough. Also having pyro characters that play melt instead of vaporize. It was not fun or interesting in the slightest. You could have so easily gotten fucked by RNG, either having too many blessing choices or too many character choices, or not meeting in the middle to allow you to breeze through it. And again, it also depended on the character choices. I don't have many melt characters, motherfuckers. I simply don't, because I didn't like the melt supports or something. I have vaporize pyro DPSs and cryo characters that don't play melt, because we don't even have that many cryo characters that play melt. Fuck's sake. And also this IT was before Lohian's release, by the way. And that is the Abyss and Imaginarium Theater of June 2026. A much more fitting thing. I don't think I need to say 6 point whatever the fuck. The Abyss was easy, actually, but Imaginarium Theater tested and broke my nerves. I was severely angry by the end of it. So next up, soon, is the version review before we go into 6.7 and its shenanigans. It's going to be a very weird version, but that is for the next video. Like this one, though, if you liked it, sub to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.